could say this is the beginning of your finals review. So let's say you have A, M, B. Now, M is the midpoint between A and B. So M is the midpoint between A and B. What do we know about the distance between from A to M and the distance from M to B? What do we know about this distance along with this distance? They're equal to each other. So AM would equal MB. So let's say if you had a setup, for instance, 5x minus 4, 3x plus 8. Say this was our setup, right? Then, how we set up our equation? You don't have to solve it. I just want setup. How we set up this equation then? Who could tell us? Who could tell us what's our setup then? I'm not going to write it down. AM is equal to MB, then how we solve for X? What's our equation setup? There you go. That's your equation setup. 5x minus 4 equals 3x plus 8. That's your setup. Now, are we at a point where we can solve for this x? So those are going to be problems. Those are going to be ideas you're going to see on your final. So, Catherine, you sure you got this? Yeah. Yeah, this is part of our final. So we're not sure we should be writing down these ideas. What a lot of this is about. Setup, solve. Once you get the setup, then the solving's easy. All right, so far, any questions? So I think what I'm going to do, we're going to talk about setups. Because solving the equations, I think you all are pretty good at for the most part. The only thing I think was a concern was parentheses, which I think I'm going to try to set it up with towards the end of the period. We do like 1 or 2 parentheses problems because a lot of us forgot about that. All right. What, Valerie, say everything again. Well, the tests, I'll probably put those in there tonight. All right? Tonight's going to be get those grades in because I don't know who was finished or not finished with the test. If you're not finished with that test, you need to tell me because we got to figure that out. We got to get that done. All right. Other questions about midpoints and all that? All right. Next slide I want to talk about. And it's just a general idea. Let's say you have 2 lines. Let's talk about our angles. So let's say we have A, B, C, D. And then we have something like of the following. I'm just going to make this up. Oops. 10x plus 7. And then 6x say minus 19. I think that's going to work. All right. I'll borrow this. I'll get back in a second. Okay. Yeah, that would work. Okay. I want to talk about what is the relationship between these two angles. What do we know about the relationship of two angles which form a line? They're a linear pair. Yeah, that's a good start. Got a linear pair. What else do we know about a linear pair?
Well, they equal 180. Like both of them should equal 180.
Okay, the sum. Linear pair. Sum of angles equals 180. Good. That's what we need to be talking about. All right, so then what would be our equation set up for this problem? Who could tell us?
10x plus 7 plus x minus 19 equals 180.
Equation set up is 10x plus 7 plus 6x minus 19 equals 180. That's our setup. Very good. Do need to know this. That's our setup. That's what we need to know for these types of problems. I'm telling you, you will get a problem like this on your final. These are ideas. All right, questions so far? All right. But yeah, that's the general rule. The two lines that form a linear pair, sum of the angles 180. That's our equation set up. All right. Questions? And then for the seniors, I understand if you're doing what you need to do, this is being recorded. So you can listen to the recording as well if you want to add anything to your information, okay? All right. Other questions on this type of problem? I guarantee you, everybody, guarantee you, you're going to see a problem like this on your file. All right, here we go. Next thing I want to talk about. If I can get there. Okay, next concept. Let's say I have In these, so you have these two angles right here. Let's say A, C, E, B, C, D. All right. And here's angle ACE. And again, some of us are still confused on how to label our angles. So here's A, C, E, B, C, D. What do we know about the relationship between ACE, BCD? Who knows what is a relationship? Look at where those two angles are. Who could tell us what's a relationship between them two angles? Huh? Why are they the same, Valerie? Say again? Okay. So yeah, they're opposite sides, opposite angles. Yep, at the intersection are congruent. What's another word for these two angles? Begins with a V. V as in Victor. Say louder, sir. Vertical angles. There we go. That's the ticket. These guys are vertical angles. Vertical angles. Congruent. That means angle ACE equals angle ECD. That's what we have going on here. So then what would be the setup for our equation? What's our equation here? Vertical angles, they're equal. So how do we set up our equation? Yep, it's 12x minus 4 equals 6 plus 38. There you go. Again, we should be in a position where we should be able to solve this equation. Yeah. You have your agenda. Take out your agenda. All right. All right. Any questions? A lot of it is what equals 180 versus what adds up, what's equal to each other. All right. Next thing I want to talk about. What if we had, now you will be told whether or not your lines are parallel, perpendicular, and all that. So these lines right here, I've got parallel lines. On the test, you will be informed. So line L, line M, parallel. Now, I have these two angles over here. I'm going to mark them. So let's say I'll mark this angle, 9x plus 40. No. I'm looking at the wrong problem. I'll do 9x plus 10. And then I'll do 4x plus 4x plus 70. Yeah, that should work. That should work. All right. Who could tell us what's our relationship? What's the relationship between these two angles? Anybody remember the angle relationship taking place between these two angles? This is original from Unit 2, Unit 2-3. Nine x plus 10, 4x plus 70. What's our angle relationship here? Okay, Edwin, you gotta take that out of your ear. What type of angle relationship is this? Okay, you're on the right track. What type of exterior? Begins with an A.
Alternate exterior angles.
There you go, alternate exterior angles. And then what do we know about the relationship of the alternate exterior angles? Yep, they're congruent. They're congruent. So then your setup, equation setup, is the following. 9x plus 10 equals 4x plus 70. There you go. That's your equation setup. That is your setup. And now you're at that point where you can solve for the x. Okay, questions on this type of problem? Now, next problem is going to be similar design. I'm going to change it up a little. So are we okay with alternate exterior? And then similarly, you're definitely going to have an alternate exterior. You may have alternate interior as well. But the next problem is going to be similar, but it's going to be a little different. I'm going to show you what I'm going to do. So here's what I am going to do for this next problem. You're going to have these two angles. I'll put it 8x plus 11. For x minus hold on. I'll just do 4x minus 11. I know it's not the best. But I just want us to understand trends. I know this isn't the best, but it's going to work for this. Anyway, who could tell us, you have parallel lines. What's the relationship between these two angles that are marked? Who could tell us what the relationship between these two angles? Well, who thinks they remember? Now, there's a couple ways you could answer this. You could either say what the actual relationship is, or what could they equal, or do they add up to 180?
Yeah, they like 20.
Okay, well, why do you think they add up to 180?
They're interior angles or something like that.
You're close. That's pretty good. Consecutive interior angles. Sum will equal sum of the angles will equal 180. So that was good. 8x plus 11 plus 4x minus 11 equals 180. That's definitely something to talk about. All right, another thing I want to talk about. So questions on these types of problems. Okay. So again, now the one quick question I have, as you saw for this equation, some of us are still making mistakes on subtracting or adding when you should be combining. Some of us made that mistake that you see 8x, 4x, we minus 4x on both sides. You cannot do that. You got to combine these. They add up to 12x, same side. Now minus 11 plus 11. Well, what's positive 11 and negative 11? What's really going to happen to those two terms? What's plus 11 minus 11? What's that going to add up or sum up to be? 0. Be aware of that, people, ladies, gentlemen. Now, I don't know if necessarily this problem is going to be the same. But, yep, that's your setup. Combine your like terms because they're on the same side. That's where some of us are really making mistakes. All right, so questions on these types of problems. Now, another thing I want to mention. Going forward now, again, this is being recorded. Recordings will go in Schoology. Now, another thing I want to mention is the following. Let's say if you have a problem, determine which numbers can be a set of 3 sets. Basically, what you need to do is the following. Make sure the largest number is less than sum of the 2 smaller numbers. So I'll give you an example. Let's say 10, 20, and 25 is 25 less than 10 plus 20? Yes or no? Is 25 less than 10 plus 20? What's 10 plus 20? So is 25 less than 30? 25 is not less than 30? Yeah. Yes. So this works. However, what if we did 10, 20, and 32? Is 32 less than 10 plus 20? Yes or no? No. This does not work. So that's what you have to do. All right. Now you might have another problem. Also, let's say how to determine the third side of a triangle. Here's what you do. I'm going to give you 2 numbers. Actually, somebody give me 2 numbers. Something like not too small, but just somebody give me two numbers, but not like next to each other either. All right. Example. 8 and 12. So then, what you do is here's what you do. You do 12 minus 8 less than x less than 12 plus 8. That's what you do. And x is the third side. So it could be any number between the difference and the sum of your 2 numbers. So that's something to think about. Anybody have questions? So these are things to think about. All right, another thing I want to add. Say we have any old triangle. X, Y, Z. $50. I'll give you two of the three angles. Now, what do we know about the sum of the three angles? Angle X plus angle Y plus angle Z must add up to how many degrees? What must the sum of the three angles add up to be? 180. That's what you need to know. So I have two angles. How do I get my third angle? Well, what do I have to do to get my third angle? So I have a 50, 75, who can tell us how many degrees we need? What do we do to get this last angle measured? You have two of them. How do we get this last angle measured? What do we have to do?
50 plus 75, and then that number minus 180.
So it's going to be 180 minus 50 plus 75. That's going to be 55. So to get angle Z, 180 minus 75 plus 50.
So that's like 25.
What is 25?
So I think that corner, right?
So, well, it's 180 minus 125. So that'll get you 55.
Oh.
You got to add them and then take it away from 180. Now, here's what else I want you all to, what else might happen. You may have to determine the sides. So, I tell everybody, because determine order of sides. So what you do is you get your angle, whatever the angle measure is, and then opposite side. I don't know if anybody remember these types of problems from earlier in the year. But you might get a problem like this. I'm going to tell you. So remember, set up your angle. So look at your angle measure. Opposite sides, basically it's the two letters you don't see. So for instance, We went from least to greatest. It would have been X, Z, Y. But then, what letters? So you have triangle X, Y, Z. X was being used. So what two letters make up our opposite side? Anybody remember? So if we're using X, so think about it like this. Remember when we did it early in the year? Yep, YZ. Because basically what you do, cross out the angle. So if you see angle X here, cross it out. Or scratch it out. That's how you get your other two letters. Scratch out the Z, you get your XY. Scratch out the Y, there's XZ. But that's how we figure it out. You get the angle, opposite side. Questions? Now, so again, real quick, next thing I want to talk about is the following. If we have an isosceles triangle, somebody give me three letters. They don't have to be next to each other. A what and W? T. All right. So triangle ATW is isosceles. So AT is congruent to TW, or AW, sorry. Now, that's what we have going on here. What do we know then? What is the relationship between angles T and W? So notice how these two sides, A to T, A to W, are congruent. What then do we know about these opposite angles? Angle T and angle W. What will their relationship be? So these two sides are congruent. What do we know about the relationship between these two angles? What do we know about that relationship then? Who could tell us? These two sides are congruent. Anytime you see a single hash mark, or it might be a double, or if I did double, that tells us these two angles are congruent, or these two sides are congruent. Then what must the relationship between this angle W and this angle T, what's their relationship? And I think I might have just slipped. These two angles, there we go. They're also congruent. Angle T is going to be congruent to angle W. So then that means then that means, so let's say we had measurement. Angle T is 12x minus 14. Angle W, 8x plus 22. And these two angles would be congruent to each other. That's what you would have going on. That's what you need to understand. Any questions? Yeah. Where's your agenda? You're there, you're back, you gotta hurry. Whatever you miss, it's on you. Okay, questions? All right, something else I want to talk about. Given we only have okay, other things that we really need to start talking about are types of, because I know we don't have that much more time going on, types of triangle congruences. Now there's, of course, SSS, that's side, 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 and SAS, side, angle, side, and then there's ASA, angle, side, angle, and then there's AAS, angle, angle, side. That's something to think about. And one particular one I want us to think about. Not that one. No. You might have something that looks like this, sort of like your hourglass. Hourglass type of problem. Now, it's not drawn to scale, but you might have something where C is going to be your midpoint. And now we talked about midpoints. What do we know then if it's a midpoint? If C's a midpoint, what do we know about this distance from A to C and C to E? What do we know about that? Okay, what about from D to C and C to B? They're also congruent. Now, what about these angles right here? What if I had an angle here, angle here? What do we know about those two angles that are directly across from each other? They are also congruent. So basically, what type of triangle congruence would we have here? Well, think about the order. What did we see first? Although we see it, this is from A to C. That's begins with an S. That's your side. And then right in the middle is your angle. That's a side angle side. That's side angle side. The reason being, that's a vertical angle. And with the midpoint, that tells you that the midpoint says segment that's above or below, right or left, they're congruent. That's why we got to harp on them angle congruencies. Now also, order matters too. Because order matters. Reason being, well, the first triangle, let's go ACB. How must I order the second triangle? How must I order the second triangle? If I went from A to C, how many marks did we see? We see the blue mark, right? Okay, so which side on the bottom triangle also has the blue mark? Is it DC or EC? Yeah, you got to go ECD. That's how, remember, your order matters. So one question I might look for the general congruence. The second one, I want the order. Our questions. All right. Other things I want to talk about, because I only have a few more minutes. I'm going to keep going. We only have maybe less than 20 minutes, especially for the seniors. This is going to be important. But for you all, you're going to see this too. So next slide. Here's what I noticed a lot of us forgot. Pythagorean theorem. Your key is labeling. You gotta label everything properly. Here's your right angle. Out of A, B, and C, what side is always the longest? So you have A squared plus B squared equals C squared. What side is always the longest? Hypotenuse, C, yes. So remember, C is your hypotenuse. That's always your longest side. Hypotenuse, longest side. Yep, you gotta get that. Pythagorean theorem, A squared plus B squared equals C squared. Now, a couple other things. You also have a leg. So that's your Pythagorean theorem. Now, there were a couple special rules. Couple special rules. I don't know if anybody remembers these from a while ago. Now, the one I would focus more on if I were everybody. So then there was the special rule I'm going to show on the next slide. I don't think I'm going to have enough room. Does anybody remember? Let me get this up. The 30, 60, 90 special right triangle rule. Okay, here's what you have going on. Make it real easy for you all. So basically what's happening, the short side, 30 degrees is across from the short leg. We agree, right? Because 30 is the smaller angle. 60 is going to be across from the longer leg. And then, of course, 90 is your hypotenuse. Again, you got to identify this. You identify it wrong, whole problem's wrong. Bless you 2 times. All right. Now, so here's the rule. More than likely, so if you're given a hypotenuse, you want to go to the short leg, just divide by 2. And I think the best way to do these types of problems, more than likely, I'm going to give you the hypotenuse. On this test, you're going to get the hypotenuse. Now, if you're given the short leg, you just multiply by 2, boom, you get your hypotenuse back. Now, I would always check this first, because that's the easier relationship. Now, the second relationship, you're going to go from short leg to long leg. Way to get that relationship, you're going to multiply whatever your short leg is by the square root of 3. So if you want to go from short leg to the long leg, you multiply by the square root of 3. That's how you do it. That's what you're going to do. So first you need to figure out, do I have a long leg or a short leg? Given a hypotenuse. What are you trying to find? Hit second x squared. That's how you get that. All right. Questions so far? Then the other thing I really want to talk about. This is the special rule. Couple other things I want to mention, and this is special for the seniors. Going back to the right triangle. Remember your SOHCAHTOA rules. This is all based on the angle in question. Like if I give you an angle, so let's say I give you an angle 36 degrees. There's 90. Let's say that's C. That's B. That's A. Now, so let's say you're given angle A. Well, what's always, because basically what's going to happen is you got these three situations, because this S for the sine, so remember, is sine equals, and I'll fill that out for you. Cosine equals, and then tangent, and again, it goes from the angle so the sine is the opposite over the hypotenuse. But remember, it's angle based. So for instance, with sine A, your opposite will be over here. This is your opposite. Cosine, if it's angle A, then you have to worry about adjacent. And the hypotenuse. And then for the tangent, what I tell everybody is, in fact, I'm gonna make this a little easier for everybody. With the so, and then I'm gonna put some space. Another way I tell everybody, put like a little equals mark between the S and the O, division. Same thing, equal mark, boom. Equal mark, boom. But again, it all depends on the angle. Because this was something I was really worried about for a lot of us. A lot of us were not, I think on the Unit 6 test, a lot of us struggled identifying sine, cosine, tangent, cotangent. That was something I was really worried about. All right. Now, the other things, since we only have about maybe just over 5 minutes to go, but this is a big one. A lot of us struggle. I would definitely review the circles circle rules. So, notably, now if you're a senior, if you completed the test, I have your test grade. I'm going to give it back to you. Definitely review some of those circle rules. What's that? I don't have it yet. I have to finalize it. I will have it by tonight. You will definitely get your grade by tomorrow in class. Unless if you need to finish the test. Then you absolutely have to get it done. Get in there real quick. So know your chart. You keep it, yeah. That's going to start helping you. So for instance, real quick, let's say you had number of sides. Well, 3. We'll just say 4, 5, 6. Number of sides, I'm going to say number of sides, angles. Because what you do, then subtract 3 minus 1, or 3 minus 2. What's 3 minus 2? And then multiply by 180. So for instance, a triangle has 180 degrees. And then quadrilateral, 4 minus 2 equals 2, multiplied by 180. And then similarly, you keep going. Follow that trend. 5 minus 2 equals 3. 3 times 180 equals 540. And then so on. 6 minus 2 is 4. And then 4 times 180, 720. So these are, again, you're going to see these rules, one way, shape, or form, on your final.